Welcome here to a very special broadcast of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Heritage Hill Studios. Happy to be here with you. And of course, Heritage Hill, our exclusive studio partner. You could find the Brew House on 3149 Sweet Road in Pompey, New York, on Palladino Farms in the country, and right by the airport, and all around the hustle and bustle of so many pieces of our great community of Central New York. You will find the Heritage Hill North location on 628 South Main Street in North Syracuse at Sweetheart Corner. So we look forward to seeing you at both. And I am here for some Cotton Bowl talk with Mr. Scottie Rodgers. Scottie Rodgers here with us, no stranger to the broadcast. Scottie and I have known each other for many years on and off camera. The Vice President of Communications for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, which is now forever a part of the college football playoff, as in the expansion to 12. They will be rotated, not rotated in and out with the New Year's Six, as we saw. Two would go in, the other four would come out, and they would rotate. Now we're going to see all six in the quarterfinal semifinal world, including the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Fantastic game that happens at AT&T Stadium, the home of the Dallas Cowboys in Arlington, Texas, right down the street from where we just had AAC kickoff for the American Athletic Conference. So, with that being said, Mr. Rodgers, it is your neighborhood now on Wake Up Call this morning. How are we doing?
You definitely coming to you from the neighborhood here in Arlington. And I got to tell you, Dan, this is going to be an extra special Cotton Bowl because this one coming up, which is our 89th college football playoff semifinal, on my birthday. So we're going to have a good time on that day. Obviously, it's going to be a great game, knowing that we're going to be a college football playoff semifinal. But I'm going to have a little fun because it is my birthday.
Yeah, we got to do something for your birthday. Is there any, because I know that Jerry Jones and the family have been good to you with the Cowboys. I know that the city of Arlington and that Dallas Arlington area has been good to you. The Cotton Bowl has been good to you. So is there anything is there any rumblings of anything special for Scottie? Because if there's not, then I'm going to have to get myself down there and make sure that I have somebody jump out of a cake for you.
Well, I don't know if things need to be overly special. The special thing is that we're going to be hosting this game in this new playoff era that we're in with 12 teams. So I'm excited about that. Know I'm going to get my fun. I'm sure there'll be some cake or cupcakes floating around there at some point because another member of our staff, Michael Conradi, his birthday is the day before on the 9th. So it's going to be a lot of birthday celebrations going on. But unfortunately, our birthdays will be secondary to the bigger story and the bigger picture that will be going on. That is the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic and our 89th Classic and our college football playoff semifinal.
Yeah, and like you said, the 89th year, and I disagree with you. I think your birthday is just as important, if not more important, than what's going on the field because good people need to be celebrated all year long. When we look at what's to come, you said the 89th Cotton Bowl Classic, and I know that you've had a long partnership with Goodyear. This is number 89, which means that next season will be at 90 years, 9 decades, to be one of the oldest bowl games in the history of college football, and to have the pageantry and the history and the connection to this sport that we love so very much. What does that mean to you, that you could work for any bowl, and there's so many of them around the country, but to be the vice president of communications for the Cotton Bowl Classic, knowing that we are just shy of 9 decades, what that means to you personally?
It means a lot. I've worked this game half my life. This actually will be my 26th Cotton Bowl game to work, my fifth on the staff in a full-time role. So at 51 years old, I've literally worked this game half my life. So to know that 89 is coming up, 90 is down the road, and if you can believe it, probably before we can blink, we'll be talking about 100. So it is truly an exciting thing to be what this game has been to so many people in the North Texas and frankly around the country and around the world. This game has touched on so many different people in so many different ways, whether it's the football players and the coaches and the administrators that are in part of it at universities, whether it's the Kilgore College Rangerettes, whether it is the individuals that have been on our boards and our councils and have served in some capacity, currently serving, previously served. It is so much, the cities that we touch. That's the one thing that's so unique. Our game is in Arlington. We were obviously the Cotton Bowl Stadium was in Dallas. We have teams that stay in Dallas. They stay in Grapevine. We have media staying in Irving. We're in Arlington. So many other cities around North Texas. That's why we lean into that term North Texas, because it's hard to describe the people, how many different cities and municipalities and individuals and organizations and companies pour into our game. It's not just one city. It's not just Arlington. It's not just Dallas. It's so much more than that. And I think that's really important for people to understand. And the people, our media operations team and our operations team, two different groups. The number of individuals that we have on those teams that served more Cotton Bowls than I have, and many of them serve 10, 15, 20, 25 games. They've worked and come in on their own time over holidays and just keep doing it year after year after year. Not doing it because it's an obligation. They're doing it because they have a passion for the game and what we do and how we do it. And having those individuals as a part of our game that partners with us on the staff to do what we do, it's truly an unbelievable thing. The chills still come up on my arm. I tell people all the time when I talk about sports, and especially what I do, when those chills stop, I probably need to, to think about retiring, because those are the types of things that get me excited. Those are the types of things that allows you to have the sacrifice that it takes to do what we do, and try to do it at the best possible way, and touch people in the best possible way. We always talk about our game is about making memories. And it's the big memories and it's the little memories. And I think that's the big memories are the games and the scores and the big plays, but it's the little memories, it's the camaraderie that they have. It's the things that they do in the community when they have the opportunity to do so. It's the time they spend in the hotel. It's the time they spend practicing. The time they spend getting to the bowl game, coming back from the bowl game. Those types of memories, the big, the medium, the little, are the ones that really makes it special, and that's what keeps us going and keeps me going.
Yeah, I mean, when we look back at this and we look back at the history like we spoke about, the first game that was played for the Cotton Bowl Classic was in 1937. TCU defeated, believe it or not, they had a football team, and we were talking about Marquette, won that game 16-6. And when we look at the history, and I had the Rice football coach on, the Rice Owls head football coach Mike Bloomgren on the show in my coverage of the AAC, which was just there with AT&T Stadium, literally where we were at the Lowe's Arlington Hotel for the AAC kickoff. I looked out the window of my floor when I was getting onto the elevator, and AT&T Stadium is right out the window. Rice, who is in the AAC, they won the second ever Cotton Bowl Classic, 28-14 over Colorado. So many teams throughout history here. Clemson and Boston College, they weren't in the ACC together way back when, but they played each other in 1940, and Clemson won 6-3. And this history just keeps going and going. And all the way down the line, as we look at, some of these recent games, the game that was played, Ohio State over USC 24-7. We look at Clemson and Notre Dame in 2018, 30-3, as well as Alabama, Michigan State when Alabama won that game 38-0. Michigan State over Baylor in 2015, 42-41. And by far my favorite, and yes, I am partial to it because I was there, was the Tulane comeback game against USC that happened within these past couple of years at AT&T Stadium in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, when the Tulane Green Wave of the American Athletic Conference, aka the AAC, went up against the USC Trojans of the Pac-12 at the time. And here's some food for thought. When the 2024 NFL Draft just happened, the number one overall pick, Caleb Williams. In the 7th round, the Green Bay Packers picked up Michael Pratt. that quarterback of Tulane, 7th-round pick this year, remember, folks, is responsible with his team for taking down the #1 overall pick shortly after. And Caleb Williams, Tajay Spears, who had a heyday
Mm-hmm.
on the ground
That's a
in
great
that
game.
Tulane game over USC, is now going into his second year as the running back for the Tennessee Titans. And Patrick Jenkins is back for Tulane, and that man is a monster, and he's about to get himself to the NFL. So I just want to remind everybody that as the AAC kickoff was going on right there by the AT&T Stadium in Arlington at Lowe's Arlington Hotel, that I don't forget how fantastic that game was, how incredible it was for Willie Fritz and Tulane, and how these draft picks in these last couple years and those to come from Tulane were all in that Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, where to many people they did the unimaginable, but to Mike Oresco, the former commissioner of the American, and myself, we believed in Tulane, and I'm so happy that I got to see that at AT&T Stadium, home of the Cowboys.
It was a unbelievable game. People forget, by the way, Caleb Williams had one of the best games
Yeah,
in Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic history with 5 touchdowns, and that is the secondary story of that game, and doesn't get talked about that much as a Heisman Trophy winner in that game, the second straight Heisman Trophy winner that we had in the game with Bryce Young there the previous year against Cincinnati. So it is unbelievable how a game like that was probably the biggest win in Tulane's history. I
yeah,
know they've had some big wins, but that was most likely the biggest win in their football history, and they did it on the biggest stage. They did it when everybody pretty much doubted him, and everybody thought that game was probably not going to be a great college football game. Turned out to be probably one of the best college football games of that season, and it's one that I know the Green Wave fans will remember for a very long time. And as someone who actually worked at Tulane, I have to, not that I'm partial to anybody, but I got to have a little twinge toward the place because I worked there for a couple of football seasons,
yeah.
actually in Willie Fritz's first couple of years. So, I'm excited for them. Glad to have USC back. I'm sure we're going to see them again. And when I say them, we're going to probably see USC again in this new playoff format, and don't be surprised if we don't see the Green Wave again in this format, because I know that they're ready to go. I know the staff has changed there at Tulane, and they're into a new chapter that way. But they've elevated their program in the AAC, and then obviously USC is USC, and their history it doesn't need to be verified. We know what their history is, and they're going to build some more history as they moved on in today's world. Now that they're into the Big Ten, it's going to be very unique to see what happens there, and for a program of that magnitude in a conference of that magnitude. So, look, going forward, it's going to be something unbelievable to see. The college football season coming up will be truly like no other, which is a phrase that we use all the time, and that's our hashtag. So it
Yeah.
is going to be like no other going forward here in this 24th season, and we just can't wait.
Yeah, and here with Scottie Rodgers once again on Wake Up Call inside of the Heritage Hill Studios, Vice President of Communications for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. You talk about what's to come, and when we look at what's to come, before we get to that, to go back to that history a little bit and to know that the Big 12, the Pac 12, the SEC, as well as the American, as we had brought up here, and the MAC has been within this. We have seen the Big 10 in this. There's been so many, the ACC, Notre Dame, who's independent. You've been able to, in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, see so many. I mean, really, to have a pulse on college football, because it hasn't just been strictly these two conferences and that's it. And with the institution of the college football playoff, you never knew what you were going to get. And being able to be a New Year's Six Bowl and be within the college football playoff semis when the college football playoff was 4 teams, to see the teams that have come through. Yes, you've had some familiar faces, but at the same time, you've had a lot of this really melting pot of college football. And now that there's 9 conferences, with the Pac not dead, but not around at the moment, you don't know what you're going to get and what you're going to see. And in the expanded playoff, we know that we have the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10. There's also the AAC for the American. There's the MAC, there's the Mountain West, the Sun Belt, and Conference USA. Knowing the history of the Cotton Bowl and knowing that you have seen so many teams from all over the country and all different conferences, what does that do to substantiate this bowl and substantiate the history of it, that it truly is what I believe is fair to say that I called it a melting pot of college football?
This is going to be the fourth, actually fifth time that we've hosted a college football playoff semifinal. Our 80th, 83rd, and 86th Classic were all semifinals. And as you know, during the pandemic year, in one of the oddest situations that has happened in college football in recent years, the Rose Bowl, which was a semifinal game, was played in our building between Alabama and Notre Dame. So the fact of the matter is that we're going to have, and this year is going to be more wide open than any year as it relates to with a 12-team playoff. Look, I use the analogies related to the NCAA basketball tournament. I know some people in college football may not like that as much, but I think the comparisons to what we're about to experience in college football are very similar in the sense of you're going to have teams that's going to be seeded. When you're talking about the first round games, 5 hosting 12, 6 hosting 11, 7 hosting 10, 8 hosting 9. When you get into a tournament style of play, you just never know what's going to happen. A team can get hot. So the 10th, 11th, 12th seed in this upcoming tournament could get hot.
Yeah.
Because that's what we are. It's the college football playoff, but when you break it down, it's a tournament. And that team can get hot and win that first round game and go into that quarterfinal game against a team that hasn't played and has some momentum and could win that game. And obviously the team that's going to get the bye, the top 4 conference champions, going to have those top 4 seeds. That's obviously going to be one of the blue bloods of college football. That's going to be a big time team that's going to have a lot of talent. But they're also going to have a lot on the line to win that game, to get themselves to the semifinal and potentially get themselves in position to play for the national championship. So it's going to be a challenge. I think for this year, everybody's learning. It's new for everybody. This is not new when you think about basketball, but it's new as it relates to football. So I would hope that some of our football friends are talking to our basketball friends, because how many runs have we seen in the NCAA tournament? 2 years ago, the Final Four at the NCAA, the Final Four in Houston 2 years ago had 3 teams in it that people would have never picked. Yeah. It was UConn and teams that people would have never picked. So that could happen in college football. I think football is a little bit more difficult for that to happen than basketball, but never say never. The one thing about sports I've learned is that you never say never and you never count out a team. It just happened in our game. You commented about it. Tulane over USC. Nobody would have picked that game. So Cincinnati get into our game as a top 4 seed coming out of the AAC at the time. Now they're in the Big 12. No one would have picked that. It can happen. It's going to happen. Probably not in the first year. Maybe happen in the first year, but over time it's going to happen. That's the law of averages. That's just the law of sports. Yeah. Strange things are going to happen on the field of play, and teams that you think cannot win are going to win because they have a lot more talent than you think they are. They're more cohesive. They come together at the right time. They start trending at the right time. Some of the big teams are going to win. We all know that. We've seen it time and time again. But I tell you, it's going to happen. And that right there is going to be the excitement about what's coming up this year and going forward, because we're going to be able to see through late December into around the New Year's time, into early January, into mid-January, where we're going to see some of the greatest college football that I think we've seen in some time, because it's going to be playoff tournament style games with a lot on the line, and which means we're going to see some unbelievable performances.
Yeah, and when you talk about we're going to see the people that have been in attendance at the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, the Cotton Bowl Classic over time, it's been incredible. So many times attendance has toppled 70,000. We're, I go back to what, 1985, that the game was played, the 1985-86 season, on January 1st, 1986. It was Texas A&M who defeated Auburn in front of 73,137 people. When you look at 1985, the year of my birth, if you just go with me along this, folks, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years in a row. 8 years in a row. From the year I was born, 85, 86, going in that, 8 years in a row of at least 70,000 people. The year after that, 69,855. So almost 9 years in a row for Notre Dame, Texas A&M, who found each other back-to-back years. Then we look at years of 80,000 plus. The game that was played in the 2008-2009 season, Mississippi, Ole Miss over Texas Tech, 88,175 people. These are NFL games. Louisiana, LSU, Texas A&M, 83,514 in the 2010-2011 season. The following season, Arkansas over Kansas State to 80,956. 87,025 for Texas A&M, Oklahoma for 2012's 13 season. And then you're looking at 70,000 the next couple of years. Alabama, Michigan State, we saw 82,812 at the end of the 2015-16 season. And then most recently, 2 of the last 3 years, we've seen 70,000 or more. We saw for Alabama, Cincinnati, that college football playoff semi that you mentioned, 76,313 in 2021-22 season. And this past season, Missouri and Ohio State in front of 70,114. These games are insane. There are NFL teams that want to call Scottie Rodgers and go, how do you guys do it for the Cotton Bowl Classic? Scottie, this is not like I read a few. We're looking at, like I said, from my birth year, we're looking at all those 8 years in a row, almost 9 years in a row. Then I'm looking at 70,000. Like if you didn't have it for 1 or 2 years, it's back to 70 again. And in the years that you don't have it, we're talking about 55, 60, so on and so forth. It's over 70 in 2 of the last 3 years, like I mentioned. 88,000, 82,000. These numbers are incredible. And in a year where there's 55,000 and you're going around AT&T Stadium, it is jam-packed. I don't know if we're counting the 55,000, but we didn't count the 10,000 people that were tailgating and forgot to come inside because they drank too much, Scotty. There's a lot of people that come out to these games, and the history of it, the pageantry, like I said, looking at the numbers of the people that are coming from all over the country to see the teams that they love, credit to what you're doing. Like you said, it's different. The experience is different, and you make memories at the Cotton Bowl Classic. And it's not that you just say it. People believe it, and they show up for it.
Absolutely. The last several years, our games have been a technical sellout, meaning by the time we get to the middle of the fall, there's no tickets available for the general public to buy. Now, granted, there are tickets that have been set aside for the 2 participating teams,
Yeah.
and people can buy tickets through that. But I know those numbers kind of go up and down, but but going into a lot of those games in the last several years, they've been technical sellout. So in order for you to get a ticket, you have to be connected to somebody with one of those teams. Granted, there's secondary market, teams get put up, tickets get put up, and those types of things. And obviously that happens at games of all types. But the most important thing is that, getting a ticket to our game is going to be, if you're not a season ticket holder and you're getting your tickets every year. And oh, by the way, let's talk about that for a quick second. The families that have passed along tickets, generations upon generations, the families have passed them down to the younger people in their family so that they can continue to have those tickets, because it means something to them to support our game every year, regardless of who are in the game, regardless if they can make the game.
Yeah.
They have made the commitment to say, I'm going to buy these tickets because I want to support this game, because I know how important it is to our community, which puts us in position to do the things that we do away from the football field through our Cotton Bowl Foundation, through the grants and money that we're able to distribute through a number of different community-based initiatives that we have, that's how we're able to do that, because the people come through every year and buy tickets and support the game in whatever way that is. And that's really important. Obviously, we're going to have the schools coming in, and their fan bases are going to be overly excited, and they're going to buy up as many tickets as they can, as fast as they can, once they get access to them and know that they're in our game. So I think it's really important that people understand how it's important to have a community that gets behind you. That's what's made our game successful. It's the community that's been behind, and it's the communities that are North Texas. Like I was saying earlier, there's so many different cities. I can name 30 different cities in the North Texas area where there's people coming from, within an hour or two or three, where they're coming in for our game, and not only being a part of the game and the game day atmosphere, but they're coming to be a part of the fan events. They're coming to be a part of just being in the community. You talk about it. I go to a lot of Cowboys games. People do find themselves out in the parking lots and don't quite make their way into the stadium, because some of their tailgates are really good, I gotta say. And I don't get to see them too much for our games. I've seen them for Cowboys games. If they're anything close, people, they create community out there because
Yeah.
they park in the same place. They bring in the food, and I've seen people bring their own live music. They got a band playing, or they got a DJ, or they got celebrities from their schools that are coming in, or just friends and family and extended family. And it's a place to connect and have community. So sometimes people just don't want to leave that, and maybe they give their tickets away, or they decide just not to go in, because they just being on the grounds is something fun. And we want people to find that community. Obviously, we want them to come through the door. We want them in the stands. We want them enjoying the entertainment that they're going to see on the field, and helping everybody connected to the programs that are in our game, to that lifelong experience that they have. It's so cool to hear some of the stories of the individuals that have touched our game, and how that have been, whether they sat in the stands or whether they made a game-winning play. I think that is one of the unique things about our games and about all of our bowl games, and that's why we're so privileged to be in what was previously called, I guess the term is going to kind of go away, New Year's Six, but the other five bowl games that's going to serve with us as quarterfinal and semifinal games going forward. That's really important for us, and we built community with our bowl brethren at those bowls, as we're trying to navigate this new landscape coming up on how we can adjust our bowl week with the parameters the CFP has given us, to make sure that we try to do the best job that we can to create a bowl experience, but by the same token, understand that whether it's a quarterfinal, semifinal, it's a business trip in a lot of ways for the teams, because they're playing for something that can get them to the next step. And that next step will be quarters to semis, or semis to the national championship. And we understand that we've done it before with our games previously. So we're going to rely on that knowledge. And I've used the term modernize our traditions. I think that's one of the big things that we're trying to do. Keep our traditional things that we do as best as we can, but also modernize them in a way that allows us to create an experience that is memorable, with the understanding of the parameters that we have to deal with in this new world of a 12-team playoff.
Yeah, and you just touched on something that I want to get to and break down here. I want to make note of this because you talked about the community. North Texas, Texas A&M, UTSA, Rice, Texas, Texas Tech, Baylor, TCU, Houston, SMU. These are teams in the state of Texas that play in Division I AFBS football. And you talk about how people come from the communities, and they come out and they see, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, wherever it may be. Texas is a big old state, but the fans come out, and there's so many teams, and there's so much support that we see. Just what you can say about the Lone Star State, because I find irony in it being called the Lone Star, when in actuality there's so many stars from so many teams that come from the state of Texas. And in my coverage of college football, I can tell you, from interviewing those connected to North Texas, to Texas A&M, to UTSA, to Rice, to TCU, to Sonny Dykes going from SMU to TCU, to Houston, I've interviewed almost every single team on the list that I gave. So I know that Texas does it big, and Texas does not shy away from competition. So to know that, yes, you're in Arlington, and Dallas and Fort Worth and that whole area, Irving, everything's right there, and that as much as it's a big state, there's a lot of areas of the state that are, you go down a street and you go from Arlington to Dallas. But to know all of these teams in the pedigree, isn't it fair to say that the stars shine brightly in a big old Texas sky?
You know what? Everything's bigger in Texas, as you well know. And you talk about programs like Texas. There's a long history of competing in our game. Texas A&M. Maybe not Baylor as much. SMU's got some history in our game as well. Another school that's not too far away out of the state, but Arkansas. Long history of playing in our game and appearing in our game.
Yeah.
So you got when you talk about the schools that are tied to the old Southwest Conference, to the Big 12, to the SEC, maybe a little bit more to the Western side that have had some connections to our game. It is truly exciting. And look, we just got done traveling across the country with all the media days. I was at a few myself. I know you were at a couple, and I know you've been covering almost all of them in some form of fashion. And when we're out at those media days, there's two things that happen. One, you run into people that have played in your game, and they say nice things about how their experience is, and they still remember, and that's pretty cool. And then you have people that haven't been in our game in a long time, or haven't been in our game at all, and they say, "Man, everybody keeps telling me we got to get to the Cotton Bowl. We got to get to the Cotton Bowl Classic." And my response always, "Come on, we'd love to have you. We want old friends. We want new friends. We want everybody. We want the teams that get the opportunity to get to our game, and we open them up with welcome arms." You can look back, and you noted it a little bit here in our most recent history when we came to New Year's Six, and we had teams, and every 3 years we had the Group of Five champion in our game. So we had Western Michigan. We had Cincinnati. Now Cincinnati was a little different because they earned their way in a semifinal as the number 4 seed. But we had Tulane. We had some teams in our game that, in a normal set of circumstances, wouldn't have made our game. But they were able to come down, and we were able to give those teams and those programs an experience of a lifetime. And you know what? One thing we do, we don't change regardless. We are the exact same based upon the team. Actually, I think quietly we probably like teams that are new to our game because they are even more excited, which gets us more excited. So we show them what they haven't seen before, and that gets us excited. Look, the Tulane fans in particular, because they're a team that fits that category. It's been 2 years out. They're still talking about that game. They're still commenting about that game. If we post something on our social media that mentions that game, they're still fans, still talking about what a great game, what a great play. I can't believe it. I was there. I was watching. That is so awesome because we want them to continue to keep that memory. And that's why we try to do some things throughout the course of the year to keep those memories alive and celebrate our Cotton Bowl Classic moments in various ways through our social and digital channels because we do have so much history. We got 88 games to go back and look back on, and so many awesome moments on the field, off the field, around the things that we've done. And we're just looking forward to the next classic to make, because we know it's going to be a classic. And this 89th and what we're going to be as a college football playoff semifinal is just going to be fantastic, and we can't wait.
Yeah, and as we look at this, you mentioned the format of what it's going to look like now. We know the college football playoffs expansion from 4 to 12 puts us in a place where the top 4 seeds are going to receive a bye, and then seeds 5 through 12 will face off against each other in the first round. Those games will be played, 3 of them this season in the first season of the expansion. 3 of them will be played on Saturday, December 21st, the first day of the winter solstice, and 1 of them will be played on Friday, December 20th. These games will be at the home of the higher seed. So the 5 against the 12, the 5 will pick. They can either play at home or at a designated spot of the higher seed. So the 5 will host the 12, the 6 will host the 11, the 7 will host the 10, and the 8 will host the 9. Then in the playoff quarters, this is where we see the New Year's 6 show up. This year in the playoff quarters, we have one game on December 31st, my dad's birthday, which will be the Fiesta Bowl. And on New Year's Day, we'll have the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, the Rose Bowl game, and the All-State Sugar Bowl. And the playoff semifinals for this season will be on Thursday, January 9th, which is the Capital One Orange Bowl. And on Friday, January 10th, the birthday of my good friend here, Mr. Scottie Rodgers, will be the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, which will be the final game played before the national championship, which will happen on Monday, January 20th of the 2024-25 season. And that national championship game will be not too far away in Atlanta. So when you look at this new format, Scotty, what are your thoughts? It was going to be the 6+6, which was going to be the 6 highest ranked conference champions of the 10 conferences. And then when the Pac-12, when what happened to the Pac-12, and I don't want to call it an extinction, because I learned when I was growing up watching General Hospital, my mom, who said you can either watch General Hospital or watch nothing. I learned that if you don't see something die, it ain't dead. And if you see something die, it still might not be dead. Just wait a couple of years and see if it shows up in an episode. So I'm not going to say the Pac-12 is dead, but for right now, they're not in it. So they changed the 6+6 to the 5+7 rule. Top 5 highest ranked conference champions will get into the college football playoff, and then there'll be 7 at large after those automatics. But the top 4 have a bye. The 5th does not. And the 5th does not guarantee that they are the 5th seed. So the 5th automatic bid could be anywhere from the 5th seed to the 12th seed. The final team with an automatic bid could play on the road for the entire college football playoff run. And, of course, the quarters and the semis will be a rotation of the New Year's 6. What are your thoughts on the format, the 5+7, the fact that the 5th automatic is not guaranteed the 5th seed, and just what you think about the overall makeup of this new college football playoff format with your bowl game and the other New Year's 5?
You know, it's going to be very interesting. Look, the playoff was going to expand. That conversation got started, and it happened. And first and foremost, as the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, we're excited about being a part of it. That was first and foremost. That was our number one goal, to make sure that we made sure that the people making decision in the leadership of the college football playoff knew that we, the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, all in to be whatever we needed to be a part of the playoff going forward. So we wanted to make sure that we did that first and foremost. You know, this playoff format is going to create some challenges. You know, we can't deny that, because you're talking about games that's going to be happening December 20th and 21st. You got games on the, you know, your more traditional bowl games on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And then you talk about quarterfinal games, semifinal games on January 9th and 10th, and the national championship on January 20th, which is a week later than it would be under the 14 format. And oh, by the way, that January 20th, if you're not tracking, is on Martin Luther King Day in Atlanta. It's also Inauguration Day. So you're talking about a jam-packed day of activity in this country that is football and beyond. So that's going to create a unique day for that game here in our country as it relates to that, and especially in the city of Atlanta. So I look forward to that experience and how that goes for that game. So it's going to be, and again, you know, I talked about it, you know, one of the things that we're working through the adjustment of is our game is on January 10th.
Yeah.
Per the direction of the college football playoff, teams will only arrive 3 days before our game, which means they'll arrive on January 8th, and the game will be played on the 10th, which is pretty much half of what our bowl week would normally be. And with that, and being in a playoff, tournament setting, we're going to have to look at how we adjust our week or our 3 days in such a way that we create the types of things that we want to create for the bowl week, but yet by the same token be sensitive to the fact that we do have teams coming in who've come off a quarterfinal game and they're coming to play in a semifinal for the right to play for the national championship. So it's going to be imperative of us to continue to come up with plans and a strategy to make sure the teams know that we have an understanding of that, because that is going to be one of the most biggest thing that is top of mind to everything they're doing. But by the same token, we want to make sure that we do the right things to show our Texas size hospitality and our North Texas size hospitality in particular, and our Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic sized hospitality in very particular, to make sure that they know that they're here at our game and they're going to have an experience, and we're going to make sure to do that. It's going to be challenging. There's no question about that. But challenges allows us to be creative, and again allows us to modernize our traditions in a way that we're looking forward to creating an experience that the teams, their administrators, their institutions, and everybody that touches the game from a fan perspective, from a participation perspective, are going to have a great experience that they're going to be able to talk about. It's like, I played in the first semifinal that was a part of the 12-team playoff that was at the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, and it was a great experience. And we want them talking about it for decades.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, it's going to be a challenge, but this format allows more opportunities. Hopefully, opportunity, of course, to the American, to the MAC, to the Sun Belt, to Conference USA and the Mountain West. Teams that were left out over the years that, in my opinion, the Boise States, the UCFs, the Houston, Cincinnati, the year before they made it, there's teams that had cases. There was Coastal Carolina that had a case in recent history of the Sun Belt. So it'll be good to see this expansion, knowing that you're never going to be out of the path. That the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, be it a quarterfinal or a semifinal from year to year, you will always be on the journey of determining the national champion. What does that mean to you as the Vice President of Communications for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, Scottie, that on the road to the national champion every single season of college football, the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic will be a part of telling the story of the national champion no matter what?
You know what? First and foremost, hopefully it's an easy story to tell. The road to the national championship in one way or another is going to come through the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. It's going to come through AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, because a team that plays in our game is going to have a chance, whether they win the quarterfinal game or whether they win the semifinal game. But the teams that come in to play for our game, because for the 25 season, we're going to be a quarterfinal, and we already know that, and we're going to be the standalone New Year's Eve game, a night game for that game. So we already know that going forward in the first 2 years of this expanded playoff. And I think what we have to do is make sure that people around us know what that means.
Yeah.
And we make sure that we communicate that to them, so that no matter if they are a fan, for us, we want people that are fans of college football to get excited. Again, this is the same concept that has happened with the NCAA basketball tournament. People go to NCAA basketball tournament games not just because there are teams in it, because it's great sporting events that is happening in their area. And these games, quarterfinals, semifinals, are going to be massive college football games that is happening for some people right in their backyard. They're going to be able to get in the car and drive under an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and come be a part of a day experience, fan experience before the game, experience the game, and go home that night and sleep in their own beds. So we want to be able to let people know that beyond being a fan of the team, you have a chance to be a part of something that is special, a part of something that is big, and part of something that's a great experience. So if you're a college football fan, a college athletics fan, just a football fan, just a sports fan, We want all those, or non-fan. You just like being around big events and having a good time and connecting with people and hanging out. You don't have to be a fan of any of it, but you want to be a part of it, and there's a place for all those people to be a part of it. I think that's the big thing that we want people to wrap their mind and their brain around. I think over the previous years, not that it was all about the two teams playing the game, but that was really where it is. And it will always be about the teams playing the game. That will never go away, no matter what the format is. But now that we are in this situation, to your point, it's about a bigger experience. It's about a cultural experience beyond a sports experience. So we want to open people's minds and eyes, and hopefully there are opportunities to get up and say, like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go down to Arlington. I haven't been down there for any game, but I love college sports. I love college football. And there are two teams playing that game that's going to be a great college football game. And I just want to go and wear the gear of my team that's not even in it. I just want to go and be there and be a part of it. I think that's cool. And what I say to that is, come one, come all. Wear your gear, be excited, be engaged. And I think that's what we want. That's what we need. That's what we need not only for our game and the other 5 games that's under the New Year's Six umbrella, but that's what we need for college football. Yeah. That's what we need for college athletics.
You know, and you said wear whatever jersey you want, and off air, you knowing how much I paid for that throwback Troy Aikman, I got to wear that as much as possible. But I got to say this before we jump into rapid fire. It's so much about the experience when you and I talk about this. And you and I met through me going to the ACC kickoff. We met through my coverage of media days, and just were two total strangers, started a conversation many years ago. And every time you and I sit down, you tell me that there's a secret sauce to the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. You tell me that you won't tell the public what it is, but that if you can give us anything, when you have a condensed time period, when you don't have as much time now, you have less days to give this experience to these coaches, to these student athletes, to the fan base, to the community. What can you tell me has to sustain, has to be? Because I've experienced it. And I can honestly say that the lounge alone for the media was second to none. I felt like I was in some rap video. I felt like I was living in some type of, upper echelon world. I was treated like a king. All the snacks you could want, and the food with the barbecue and the couches and the drinks for, and the pool. I shot pool for 2 hours. So I know what the experience is like being at the game. I know what the experience is like being around you. And I know the type of person that you are and the type of person you've always been with me. And consistency is important to me. So with that air of consistency, with that attention to detail, what is a must for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic that in less time you will sustain for all of us?
We got to figure out how to make our sauce a little bit quicker. Because in many ways, in the previous, we'd learn about our teams in early December. We'd have 2.5 and sometimes close to 3 weeks before bowl week, or game day, and which means we had 2.5 weeks before bowl week. Now we're going to be finding out our teams, maybe one on the 31st, maybe both on the 1st, and then they're going to be showing up on the 8th. So that's simple math on how much time we have between January 1st and January 8th. Really January 7th, because by January 8th we got to be really ready for them. Yep. So when they get to town. So we're just going to have to figure out how to create our sauce more efficiently. We're going to have to figure out how to add some extra flavor to the sauce. Maybe we might add some more condiments to it. We might add a little extra spices in there, because we got a chance to make it a little different than maybe we made before, but it still tastes good and it still got that same impact. And that's what we got to do, and that's what we're spending a lot of time in this quote unquote off season in the spring and the summer and the early fall, having conversations internally about having conversations externally with vendors and partners and our bowl brethren and all a lot of different types of people to figure out how do we do that. And we know, look, it's just a shorter period of time. It's not what we'd like to have, but it's what we have.
Yeah.
So we've bought into the fact that the days are the days. We got the schedule that we're gonna have, and we're gonna have to do it a little differently. That doesn't mean we can't have the same impact. Just because you have to do it differently doesn't mean that the impact or the end result has to be different. We have to
Yeah.
dig in a little bit and be a little bit more creative. And the three sides of our game and the impact is from the fan perspective, it's obviously from the team's institution perspective, and it's from the media perspective. And we want to make sure that we maintain that level of things that we've across those. I mean, that's a very broad way of saying it,
Yeah.
but that's what we want to make sure that we keep going. And like I said, I can't give up all the ingredients of the secret sauce, but the sauce is that we got to be able to do it and do it well. And I think we've sat down early on and we are on a journey of conversation and decision making that everybody's coming in with an open mind with what we got to do to make it different but make it taste the same, meaning make it hit the same, meaning making sure that that experience is similar and then that as it was before. So that's what we got to do. And we still got a lot of time before January 8th. So I mean, we're gonna be working on that sauce then until the very end. So we don't want the sauce to peak too early. We're gonna make sure that sauce is right and ready on January 8th when these teams come to town.
And all I ask is that we put a futon in the lounge so I can just stay. So that's what I want. So let's play some rapid fire here. Cotton Bowl Classic talk here with the Vice President of Communications for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, Mr. Scottie Rodgers, on Wake Up Call inside of the Heritage Hill Studios. Couple questions back and forth. I've had mine for you since the beginning, but I'm going to wait and defer to you. What's your first question for me?
What's your favorite food?
Oh man, I'm probably gonna have to say, and I tell people I'm so proud of my heritage, being Hispanic and Italian, and there may be a sprinkle of some other things in that, but we know we're Hispanic and Italian. And for me, I gotta say probably nachos. Nachos, tacos, like in that world because I like to make tacos at home. I like to make nachos at home and tostadas at home and whatnot. By the way, Arlington Hurtado, best tostadas I've had in my life. They're minutes from AT&T Stadium. So if y'all were watching this and you need any more reason to go see Scotty and hang out at the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, Hurtado down the road is the place for tostadas. I think about it all the time. So yeah, I'm probably gonna say tacos in that taco nacho tostada world because I can work with a bunch of different ingredients and have some fun with it. My question
Fair
back
enough.
to would you say?
I said fair enough.
My question back to you. I don't know if you're gonna like me for this one, Scotty. I'm sorry in advance, but you have a connection to Tulane. You have a connection to Alabama. Is it roll wave or roll tide?
It's roll tide. I love my time at Tulane. There's some great folks there. I don't know exactly how the roll wave came about, but it's been roll tide all my life. I mean, I was born and raised in the state of Alabama. Pretty much when you're born, you almost have to pick a team between Alabama and Auburn. And I was fortunate enough. I was an Alabama fan
Yeah.
before I actually went to Alabama. And I got my start in college athletics at Alabama. If it wasn't for the 3 years of undergrad that I had there, I would not be in position to even start the career that I've been able to have. So it's always roll tide over roll wave. But I still got a little love for my folks in Uptown New Orleans.
I like that. What's your second one for me?
What sporting event would you like to cover that you haven't covered?
The college football playoff national championship game. I've I've been to games within the New Year's Six. I've been to games within the world of the college football playoff, but I have not been to the national championship game. I've interviewed throughout the process. I've done some virtual stuff. You know that because we got to see each other in person and we got to do virtual. I've gotten to talk with Nick Saban. I've gotten to talk with Luke Fickell and so on and so forth. But and Kalen DeBoer, who's the new coach at Alabama, I got to interview him with Washington virtually. But it's time to be at the college football playoff national championship, and I think that I don't think that. I know that by the grace of God, I have worked very diligently doing what I love and loving what I do to be a local, regional, national, and international brand. We have companies that we work with in multiple states. We have a hub in Florida. We're building a hub in Carolina. We're doing a lot of work in Texas. So to me, I tell people two things. One, we're a national, international show. Two, I'm low key running for president in 2028. So that's what I tell people. My
I
question,
love it.
my question back to you, Mr. Rogers, is if I was running for president in 2028 and you were my vice president and we won because, why wouldn't we, Scotty? Look at that smile. So if we
Absolutely.
won and we're
Or if I'm running, we're winning. That's just happening.
so we win and we're standing at the podium. I'm the president, you're the VP. What's the first thing that we say besides my fellow Americans? What is the first thing that we say together at the podium? Because I'm going to do it different. You know that. So, what's
Oh,
the
yeah.
first thing that we say, and what is the first thing that we do?
The first thing that we say is, "Don't worry, folks. We got this handled. We're going to put this country back where it needs to be. We know about being at the top. We know about being number one. We're going to be number one in everything because you and I are going to rely on our sports background to know we're talking about teams getting to the college football playoff national championship. We've seen games, teams rise to the top and rise to the occasion, and we're going to be able to tell the folks that we're going to do the exact same thing, and we're going to do it together, united, inclusive, and we're going to have some fun doing it.
I love it. What is the first thing that we do? The first act of our presidency, vice presidency.
We're going to have a big old party first and foremost.
I love that.
We're gonna have a good time first and foremost before we get to work. You got to celebrate your wins first and foremost. You got to celebrate your wins. We get that out of the way, and then then we have to probably go in the summer room and somebody give us a whole bunch of papers, and we have to read all of them to understand what's going on in the world. But I think our first act is just letting people know that it's gonna be okay. That it's going to be okay, and if you get with us, if you ride with us, it's gonna be the journey that you want. If we're gonna take on the haters, we're gonna take on everybody, and we're gonna make sure that everybody is gonna be a part of the journey, whether they want to be or not.
See, I love that. I love that. I can appreciate that. And I will be the president that is sitting in the situation room and it's quiet and we're listening to somebody talk and you hear that crunch because someone went and flew and got me hurtado and brought it to the presidential meeting in Washington, D.C.
Let me tell you something. If you're the president, I'm pretty sure you will have tostadas every day, probably multiple times a day. You probably will have them hot and ready to go at all times.
That's right, because I'm going to take hurtado and be like, you're opening a second location in the White House. What is your final? What'd you say?
That's funny. That's funny. The folks from Hurtado better watch this. I might have to tag them so they make sure they watch
Yeah,
this.
we
'Cause
need
they're
to
getting a lot
tag
of
them
love here.
because I think if I've said their name 3 times, which I did, I'm pretty confident at this point they need to have a partnership with Wake Up Call. Scotty, what's your final question for me?
Final question is, if you were stuck on a desert island and you had one sporting event to watch over and over again, what would it be?
That's tough. If I had one to watch over and over again, what would it be? This might be one that people don't expect, but it's the one that started to like give me them chills. And shout out to the Texas Rangers because a Diamondback infiltrated your headquarters just within these last couple weeks. You're welcome. But I would say that 2001, of all the teams that I have, the first time that I got to watch one of my teams win a championship was 2001. And it's when the Arizona Diamondbacks beat the Yankees. And it was the unthinkable, the unimaginable. And it was the first time I saw any of my teams win. And since then, I've seen a bunch of them. I've seen my Ducks. I've seen my Raptors. I've seen Syracuse basketball. I've seen Italy and Spain win Euros and World Cups in men's soccer. I have experienced a lot with my teams. But that first one hits different.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to watch Randy Johnson, my favorite mullet, just do his work, and Luis Gonzalez hit that ball into the shallow end of the outfield and send us home and give us that victory. And I feel it in my bones right now. I feel it in my body. So I'm gonna watch that one.
Yeah, that's, watching your team win a championship when you don't think it's going to happen is pretty unbelievable. So I can appreciate that.
My final one for you, Scotty, since you're in the home of the Cowboys. There's some contracts coming up, Scotty.
Oh, boy.
CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, just a few. And
yeah.
So my question to you is, can Jerry Jones find a way to lock all three up? If not, then tell me the two that he's got to keep.
Well, first of all, if you know anything about Jerry Jones, he has built himself on the fact that he can do, in many ways, what other people can't.
Yeah.
That's how he's become the person that he's become, the mogul that he's become.
Yeah.
So when you're gonna talk about things being impossible, I don't know. Now, if I gotta pick two of the three, probably gonna be, and I will preface this by saying I'm a lifelong Dallas Cowboys fan. I normally don't like talking things Cowboys when you get into things like this because, the Jones family does a lot for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. They have and they continue to do, and we are very supportive and proud of that relationship and partnership. But I'm going to put on my fan hat for 1 minute.
Okay.
And say, if I got to pick two of the three, I'm going to go with the positions that are harder to replace. And I'm going to go with Parsons and Lamb because, as many people know and have seen, name the quarterbacks over time, Peyton Manning being one of them, Russell Wilson being another one of them, who their time with their first team, they thought you could never replicate that. And I'm going to use Peyton Manning as a perfect example. Brady being another one.
Yeah.
Where they had a second act that a lot of people didn't think. And for Manning and Brady, it became winning it all with that second team. So while I would hate to see Dak go, I feel like there's potentially someone out there that could step into the role and be successful. But when you talk about talents that are harder to replace, a wide receiver of that magnitude and a defensive hybrid of
Yeah,
that magnitude is kind of hard to replicate.
I can understand it, and I don't think there's anything wrong said by that. Jerry Jones is a businessman. I know he's been very good to everyone, and to when it comes to the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, and obviously a fantastic arena. And I know Jerry Jones is somebody that you appreciate as a Cowboys fan. With that being said, thank you to Mr. Jerry Jones for making a really nice house, because I finally got to visit it and it was incredible. Good, the Cotton Bowl talk here at Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, Vice President of Communications for it, Scottie Rodgers on Wake Up Call inside of the Heritage Hill Studios. Scottie, as always, it is my absolute pleasure, and I hope that I hope it's okay if I say this on the air. I hope that you'll have me in the early part of January, because I'd like to celebrate your birthday in Arlington and not via Zoom if I can. So,
Come on down, come on down. Look, you've done a lot of work in covering college football. You make a lot of sacrifices. What you do with Wake Up Call DT, and that's what you got to have when you're covering college football. You got to have passionate people. And the way the media looks right now that covers college football and college athletics really looks a lot different than it once did. And but you are spending day in and day out practicing quality journalism, asking quality questions of coaches and student athletes, and trying to cover the sports with the best objective bend that you can, which always is going to have a twinge of subjectivity. That's just what covering sports is. But I think that's what we got to have in college football, and we got to continue to give people who are working hard to do it the way that it's supposed to be done the opportunities when those opportunities become available. So come on down and see us, because we're gonna have a big game here in a big state in a big building, and we're happy to have it, and really just can't wait.
yeah, so Jerry, party at AT&T Stadium. So with that being said, hey, we know there's going to be a party. The Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic is a party with 50 to 70, 80,000 of your friends. Come out and see them in early January on Scottie Rodgers' birthday. I look forward to, God willing, having the opportunity, by the grace of God, to be there. I love being there. And Scottie, the experience, I'm not just saying it because we're here together. I mean, when I mentioned the experience of what it was like to just be at one piece of these events, it was second to none. And the hospitality, absolutely incredible. And to me, I think, for as many days as the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic allows, I would tell anybody on the media side, get there and enjoy it the whole way through, not just before the game, not just after the game. Enjoy the whole experience. So much fun. And Arlington, Dallas, that whole area, just really incredible, really close to the airport as well when you get over to AT&T Stadium. So I can't say enough good things about it. The food is fantastic, but above all things, God crosses paths and gives you the opportunity to meet some great people. Scottie, you are one of those people, and I thank God every single day for the good ones, and you are one of the good ones that I'm happy I cross paths with.
Dan, thank you for that. Appreciate all the work you do. Appreciate the friendship, and just keep fighting a good fight, and keep talking about sports, and keep talking about college football, because we love it.
Appreciate you.